Hello and welcome to the Department of History of Art and Architecture at Trinity College. I'm Dr. Rachel Moss, the current head of department. Every day we're exposed to literally thousands of images. Most of those we simply process very quickly, perhaps with a glance. Some we might stop and look at for a little bit longer. But very seldom do we actually stop and pause for any length of time to consider the choice of signs, symbols, gestures and colours that have been used to convey a message, the proverbial, a picture contains 1,000 words. In the discipline of art history, that's exactly what we do. We stop and we look and we analyse how images are used to convey particular messages at particular points in history. Two examples I'm showing here. The one on the left, part of the Trinity College collections, an image of the Virgin and Child from the Book of Kells, dated to the late 8th or 9th century CE. This shows a mother and child enthroned, the mother dressed in very lavish purple robes, a slight hint of translucency in the skirt suggesting an image of imported Asian silks. The choice of purple here is particularly important, as in contemporary law tracts we're told that this is the reserve of the aristocracy, and this goes right back to classical times when purple was very much the imperial colour due to the cost of procuring the dye from hard to source seashells, a dye known as Turanian purple. And yet here it appears in an Irish manuscript, seen as an image of royalty, of importance, so conveying a very particular message about a figure who in the Bible is, of course, nowhere near the upper echelons of society. The colour purple used in Bacon's study after Velázquez of the portrait of Pope Innocent X. When he's asked about the use of colour, he said he simply wanted to have the excuse to use purple in this type of clothing, the vestments of a prelate, because it wasn't suited to more ordinary clothing. Obviously, one can read many other readings into the use of the colour in this particularly dark image. But the colour certainly arrests the viewer when one is looking at these particular images. And once one stops and begins to ponder, why has the artist used this? What is the meaning underlying it? Similarly with gesture, these two figures are enthroned, emphasising their importance, and this is something that we find very commonly in later portraiture. Picked at random an image of Abraham Lincoln, but this is a gesture that is very commonly used in political and presidential portraits, whether painted or photographic, showing the sitter not just seated, but with their hand raised to their chin, a gesture that for most of us with any level of visual literacy will understand as portraying this person as a thinker, as somebody who is knowledgeable and thinks deeply about the actions that they take. But again, picking up this idea of visual quotes and visual literacy, this isn't something that is introduced in the 19th century. We're familiar perhaps with portraits such as that of Abraham Lincoln, or indeed Auguste Rodin's famous statue, The Thinker, from the very early 20th century. But it goes right back. It's used by Michelangelo in his image of Lorenzo de' Medici, again a way of portraying a powerful but also a thoughtful leader. And right back to the roots, I suppose you could almost argue, of figurative art, a typical gesture used to portray philosophers or great thinkers in ancient times. And here just a couple of examples. One, a figure that's often interpreted as Socrates, another a Bronze Age pot going right back to 2500 BC. And it's through the discipline of art history that we begin to learn how to read these images. Why do we study the history of art and architecture? Well, it's this very question. You look at something and you wonder, why does it look that way? And once you begin to gain that visual literacy, visiting museums, galleries, and looking at all of the objects around you take on new and richer meanings. So art history provides us with the knowledge and understanding of the past, and through it, of the present. Now, why study history of art and architecture? Well, why study it at Trinity College in particular? Well, here at Trinity, we pride ourselves on small group teaching, and this allows us to get out into the field, if you like, into galleries and museums located close to the campus at Trinity College, to look at the monuments and sculptures around us in the city of Dublin, and further afield indeed, to look at the historic sites right across the country, and to visit historic collections such as those in the National Museum, as I'm showing you in the bottom right hand of the screen, or indeed the National Gallery print room at the top left. So we're situated close to the centre of the city of Dublin, with easy access to these national collections and important collections of buildings and sculptures. On the campus itself as well, we have a significant range of resources pertinent to the study of art and architecture. Trinity College has a significant collection of contemporary art, much of it displayed on the walls of the public areas around the campus, and we very much integrate that into our teaching. Also on campus is the Douglas Hyde Gallery, a contemporary art gallery, and a place where many of our students cut their teeth on internships, helping visitors to the galleries to understand what it is that they're looking at. For those with an interest in earlier collections, our collection of early manuscripts is of international significance. It includes the internationally famed Book of Kells, but also slightly lesser known manuscripts dated to the same period, such as the Book of Durrow, Book of Dimmer, the Book of Mulling, and then important collections of later medieval manuscripts and early printed material in collections such as the Fagel collection, housed in Trinity's old library, which you can see on the screen in the bottom left. Also, within the campus, we have some of the most significant architecture public buildings constructed in Ireland between the 18th century and the present day. I'm showing you here an image of our main front square with the 19th century campanile, an echo of an earlier medieval bell tower that occupied a site close by, reminding us that the campus, established in 1592, was built on the site of an earlier medieval monastery. And then imposing 18th century buildings, what we can see in the frame here, our chapel and our dining hall. But we've maintained that tradition of commissioning significant architects to maintain the quality of architecture on the campus. And the image on the right-hand side of the screen is one of the libraries that students study in, and indeed it's the library that holds many of the art history collections, the Berkeley Library, which celebrated its 50th anniversary in 2019, built by the American architect Paul Corlett, and a very important essay in the brutalist style, in an Irish but also in an international context. Now, indeed, it's these buildings in which students get the opportunity to study and to learn. And I'm showing you an interior view here of the Berkeley Library on the left-hand side and the interlinked Usher Library on the right-hand side. And it's here that you will get access to over 7 million printed volumes. So the richest collection of any library on the island of Ireland. It also includes important electronic resources, quiet study spaces and group learning spaces where students can get together and discuss issues with their classmates. In the Department of History of Art, we also have our own dedicated study spaces. We have the Trinity Irish Art Research Centre, which occupies the renovated 19th century stables attached to the Provost's house. And as you can see from the images below, the original stalls in which the horses once fed have now been converted into study corrals for students, and above this is a reading room dedicated predominantly to works pertaining to Irish art, some of them actually quite unique, ephemera such as exhibition catalogues and so on. So this is a space dedicated to our students alone. Now, much as we love our campus, we also encourage our students to travel and to experience the art and architecture of European cities and indeed beyond. This can be done either by engaging in one of our student exchange programs, exchanging with various universities across Europe and indeed further afield, or integrated into our courses are modules which involve the dedicated study of a European artistic centre. And here on the screen I have images of various previous study trips, one class study trip to Paris, and here an image of a seminar in the Louvre, or another focused on Florence but travelling out, and here the students learning basically where Michelangelo would have sourced the stone that he used in his works. So again, very important for students to experience works at first hand and to be able to discuss them and look closely at the materiality of the works that they're studying. Now, for those who are interested in studying the history of art and architecture at Trinity, there are a number of degree programmes. We offer single honour in the history of art and architecture. This can be taken as part of the Columbia dual degree, where students study their first 2 years in Trinity as part of the single honour history and art and architecture, and then they move to Columbia in New York to complete their degree, and they will emerge with a degree from both universities. You can also study the history of art and architecture as part of a joint honour or as part of the degree in ancient medieval history and culture. With all of these degree programmes, there are flexible pathways, and this basically allows students, once they've built up a sound foundation in the discipline, to choose a particular speciality that they might be interested in. And they can also pick modules from other disciplines which they feel will help to, consolidate the knowledge that they're building in the subjects that they're taking. So these are the various pathways. There's plenty more information available on these in the college prospectus. For joint honours, the entry route, there are various combinations with other subjects in arts, humanities, and I list them here, all of which complement the study of the history of art and architecture. And we very much encourage students taking a joint honours degree to really draw on their other subjects to help inform the way that they study and interpret works of art and architecture. Depending on the pathways that they take, students can choose from a range of different modules. And what I'm showing you here are the courses that are offered at present. These will vary sometimes according to staff availability and indeed the pathway that students are choosing. But the aim of our course is in the first and second years really to build up a foundation, to provide a chronological survey that looks not just at European works of art, but that looks more broadly at how European art speaks to the artistic traditions of other cultures globally. So in the first year we have a chronological survey of art and architecture. We study some canonical works in focus, and for single honours and Columbia dual degree students we also focus in on sources and methodologies and encourage students really from the start to build on their own independent inquiry. And then as they progress through the degree programme, they begin to specialise more. We tend to take a more thematic approach in the second year, the senior freshman year as it's known, looking at different aspects of the discipline of art history, for example, how it's displayed and the history of collecting and so on. And then as they progress, they can specialise more, whether it's in terms of geography or period, or culture as they proceed towards their final year, when a large part of the course is a capstone project, the dissertation, which allows independent study on an area of particular interest. So what does this educate our graduates to do? What kind of areas do they go into as graduates of the history of art and architecture in Trinity? Well, One of the key graduate attributes that our students have is an ability to think laterally. The way that we approach art history is multidisciplinary. So it in fact gears them up for a whole range of different careers. Those that are more vocational, many of our students have gained employment in the heritage sector, in arts administration, journalism and media, and an understanding of imagery in particular, very useful for that and for marketing and advertising. And many of our graduates have also found employment in the academic sector. So plenty to choose from once you've completed your 4-year degree at Trinity. Thank you very much.